What up, guys? Welcome back to the Talking Ball podcast, where we talk everything ball. And on this episode, we're going to be talking small town ball. That's right, we're going to be talking about all the small town athletes out there. A couple things I want you to take away from this episode is, to me, it just means more to be a small town athlete. I got a personal experience that I'll speak on later about town coming out to support the team on a Friday night. And also, to me, it just feels like there's more camaraderie for small town athletes. I also have a personal experience that I'll speak on later about a practice that kind of led me to understand why I was a part of this group. Um, a few shout outs I want to give before we get started here are to a couple articles I read the other day. The first one being it's a big adjustment coming from the reserve to living in a totally different society, exploring the well being of First Nations playing sports in an urban mainstream by Sarah R. Johnson and her crew, and also sports specialization characteristics between rural and suburban high school athletes, written by David R. Bell and his crew. Now let's get rolling here again. I will be using research and personal experience to explain to you why this group is so special to me and why it just means more to be a small town athlete. So, the first story I'm going to tell here comes from my senior night of football. Um, it was late October, um, second to last week in the season. We hadn't won a ball game to this point in the season. So, I was not really expecting a massive crowd to show up, but when I went out to go to pregame warm-ups. We had a road running by our school, and the road led to the football stadium. And when I came around the corner to the football stadium, it was already packed, and it was still 30 minutes till kickoff. So we go through pregame warm-ups, doing that, and then right before 10 minutes before kickoff, we had to do our senior recognition, because there's 20 of us and there wasn't going to be enough time at halftime to do everybody. So we did that, and then I remember everybody's family and friends cheering. We had a bunch of students from our school come out and support, so that was big. For the game itself, it was actually a really fun one to be a part of. It was a kind of a defensive and also back and forth game. Um, the score with a minute 30 was um 10-14 in favor of the visiting team. But we did get the ball back, and we had a chance to go and score. Um, but we were moving down the field pretty good, and then we got to a 4th and 2. Coach called a timeout because the clock was running, so we get to the sideline, have a little discussion. The fans are going crazy in the stands because we're getting close to winning our first game of the year. And I remember the play call like it was yesterday. It was Liz 46 counter. It was supposed to be a guard and a tackle pull for the block for the running back. And so we run it. I pull. I don't know what happens. I hear a whistle blow. And then I turn around and I see our running back laying 3 yards in the backfield. Um, so we did not win this game. We sadly came up short, but it was still quite the experience to have the town show out. And this leads into kind of what the first article is about. It's again, it's titled "It's a Big Adjustment Coming from the Reserve to Living a Totally Different Society." And it talks about these indigenous girls from up in Canada basically having to move off the reserve to go play hockey in the city to continue their hockey career. But while they're doing all this, they have the support of their parents, and this quote is in there, and the quote reads, in their stories, the athletes and their support groups, i.e., parents and billet parents, indicate that the athletes' well being was influenced by their network of support. And this can, to me, this quote portrays both for the indigenous girls and also small town athletes because um you just people are going to support you. There's more people than just your parents that support you with small town athletes. Like in the story, the town, there's people there that their kids I know graduated 3 years before me, and they still showed up to they still showed up and supported. So it's not just your parents that are supporting you, it's everybody. And I think this kind of is why it means more to be a small town athlete, because you're representing something. There's more people than just your family backing you up here, and that's why I think it means more. Now the next story is actually quite interesting because we're actually going to go way back in time. We're going to go back to my seventh grade year, actually, and we're going to go from the tail end of the season to the very beginning of the season. So it's the second week of August. We are getting ready to, well, we're in full swing of practice where you've got pads on, we're hitting. Um, Again, it's October, so it's hot. It is the second to last day before we get off, so we still got like another day to go. So, my dad, who was actually my coach at the time, he had us do, this was the last drill before we went to like our 11 on 11 period where we, then the practice was going to be done for the day. So the drill was actually called bull in a ring. And so what you're supposed to do is two linemen are going to line up across from each other. Somebody's going to signal, and then you're going to basically try to block each other. So we're going down the list, like everybody's lined up doing it, and then it gets to my turn. Well, of course, luck, lucky me, I get drawn to try to block one of the bigger eighth graders on the team. So, um, get down, get in the stance, says hut. Um, and then surprisingly, I actually was able to block him fairly good to the point where everybody on the team was going crazy. All the linemen, all the receivers that were watching were going crazy. And that, to me, was just the moment where I realized that I was actually a part of a pretty good group here. And it kind of relieved a little bit of the weird tension because it's like, yeah, you played with some of these guys in like the rec leagues, the little community leagues, but you hadn't like, I mean, that was just rec, so it wasn't like competitive like the high school and the middle school sports are. Um, but this also helps, also kind of leads into the sports specialization characteristics between rural and suburban high school athletes. Article written by David R. Bell and his crew. Um, it covers the just this. It compares schools in like a suburban area compared to a rural area of Minnesota. And the thing I really took away from this uh, article was there was a chart that was presented in there that compared like the student bodies that participated in sports, and the numbers like nearly were double for the suburban school as they were for the rural school, so it was like 120 to like 64, I think. So it was pretty big numbers. Um, and you may be wondering, well, how does this do with camaraderie? And I believe that the more tight, like the less people you have playing with you, the more tight knitted your group is gonna be. Another example I'll use for this is going back to my senior year. There was only 30 of us on the varsity football team, so we all knew each other pretty well. We all hung out together. It was not a loose fitting group. We all had each other's backs in situations. We were like a giant family. But there was another school in our county that had probably around 60 to 65 kids on their varsity team. Like they could run out a whole new offense every time. They could run out a whole new defense every time. And it was just so. And I'm gonna bet you that that group from that other school was not as neat as not. It was not as tightly knitted as we were. Excuse my little break there. But to me that just shows why there's just so much camaraderie. And again, a lot of these guys I still talk to on the daily. Um, and I can't wait to see them. I either talk to them over social media or talk to them whenever I go home and visit. Um, with all that, that's going to be this episode of the Talking Ball podcast. I would like to thank again the articles that I've used as a reference in this episode, and I hope you were able to get what I was putting down with the whole. It means more to be a small town athlete, and there's more of a camaraderie feel to it. Again, remember to send in your suggestions for topics on the show. You can do that via DMs on Facebook or Instagram. And with all that, that's been the Talking Ball podcast, and we'll see you next time.